Well, so this is our
Close.
our inaugural. Is that the right word? This is
Yes.
the first ever Find Your Success podcast. Welcome. We got Nick Armstrong here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it took a little bit of negotiating to get him in here, but we came together on the right price.
Yep.
He's tough. He's a tough dude. Tough dude, but happy to.
Busy schedule, but I'm never too busy for you to.
You know what? You've always said that, and it's always been true. So I do appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
So, it could be a lot harder to get you in here, but
Yep.
you came in here on your own free will.
Yep.
Which is great. All right. So I just want to get to share who you are with,
Sure.
With the world in this first episode.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Nick Armstrong. I describe myself as an all things real estate kind of guy. I have a couple of different hats that I wear and that I live in different realms and stuff. But my main job right now, my main role is Director of Operations for Keller Williams here on the west side of Albuquerque. Love this city, love everything that it offers, but that has been my passion and my focus for the last 4 years or so. And I've really been working that role to the highest I can. But I'm also a licensed realtor. I've been licensed for about 3 years now as well, doing sales for buyers and sellers. I prefer to focus more on investment properties and more of a niche in that realm of multi-unit. I'll do single-family, multi-unit, pretty much anything, but investment is really my niche. I like that world a little bit more than just the traditional residential stuff. But on top of the other two jobs, I am also an investor. So I have an investment property that I've been renovating and flipping over the last year or two. And that's kind of the long-term strategy for me is more of the real estate investing, a little bit less of sales over time. But I do enjoy all three worlds because they kind of complement each other.
Yeah, no, see, you've got a ton going on.
Yeah, busy, but
you always do. And we're going to shout out your Instagram profile so that people can get an over-the-shoulder look at
my Instagram, Nick Armstrong Realtor. So if you want to check me out on there, I post content about what I'm doing renovation-wise or sales-wise or pretty much anything. But I try to be as consistent as possible. It's not always so
social media is kind of a pain in the butt. We know that much, right, Jalupy?
Yeah, there's a lot to do for it, for sure.
So you're in Albuquerque now.
Yes.
Where are you really from?
I grew up in Vermont. I have quite a bit of family back out there. Vermont, if you don't know, is this very tiny little state in the northeast side of the country. Geography is not my strong suit, so I always like to explain it.
I'm glad you did that. I was going to make a joke, but I'm sure
right
somebody was like,
York.
what country is that in?
Yeah, it's real close. It's right next to New York and Massachusetts, that kind of New England area of the country. So I grew up out there, and I loved everything about the area in the childhood, except for the snow, I guess you could say. There was a lot of snow. And then when I was coming out to college, I went to the University of New Mexico. So I kind of came from Vermont to go to school, and I finished up school, and I just never left.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I'm glad it all worked out that way, because if it didn't, I wouldn't get to know you.
Yeah, we wouldn't know each other, honestly.
I know.
If I hadn't gone to UNM, I probably wouldn't
life
have the whole world.
would just not have the same flavor as it does now, I'll tell you that much.
It wouldn't. Not at all.
Yeah. Not that it's a great flavor, but no, seriously though.
Fair enough.
I'm glad.
I like to describe myself as a plain potato chip, right? I mean, that doesn't sound all that lustrous, but everybody likes potato chips, right? And there's flavors, there's different flavors, but I would plain potato chip.
You're a plain potato chip.
Yep.
Well,
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Like lightly salted?
Lightly salted.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right,
Got the sodium levels
flavor, at least.
down, so.
A little bit of flavor. Well, all right, man. Well, I really want to talk now about what success looks like to you.
Sure.
What is success, and maybe what are some of those metrics that you're measuring your success by?
Yeah. I don't know. Success for me is pretty relative. I think it's relative to an individual's goals.
1,000%. I agree.
I think if you identify goals within yourself and goals that you want for your life and your existence, you have a high ability to outline what success looks like. But without goals, I don't know that you can really define it, Or on the other hand of that, if you don't set goals in that sense, other people will define what success looks like for you. And I think that's a huge piece that a lot of people fall into, right?
Yes.
They go work a job or they go do something that is their day to day, and it's so habitual with them. And
out of necessity.
Yeah. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. I do the same thing, right? But I think people sometimes are not intentional with what they want out of that position, and they allow the position to kind of filter that to them.
Once they finally gain that advantage by having the job,
Yeah.
they forget to go back and re-examine
Yeah.
what the next step should be, but instead are consumed by that new job and the expectations that others set for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it in my life. So success for me is relative to my goals. I think if I'm setting some goals, yeah.
So what are the goals, if you don't mind sharing?
Not at all. Personally, for me, I'm 25, so I'm relatively young. I have a little bit of time to achieve a lot of this. But personally, one of my biggest goals is kind of driving my activities day to day right now is I would like to have a net worth of $3 million by 30 years old. So kind of 3 mil by 30 is the tagline that I've been using for that. And for me, the way I'm going to achieve that is essentially real estate investing, right? I want to take and I want to build my real estate portfolio to a potential of having 3 million in assets by the time I'm 30 years old. And really net worth of 3 million. I don't particularly care how many assets I have. I just want to have a net worth of 3 million.
Is that where did that number come from? I'm just curious.
It rhymes with 30, so it's kind of congruent with 30, right? 3 and 3, so it's just kind of a pretty number to get there. I think the other thing in my head right now, $1 million is a great number to shoot for. It just seems a little bit dated, I guess you could say. Everybody wants to be a millionaire, right? Like that's kind of everybody's perception of it. And I would love to be a millionaire as well, don't get me wrong. Times three, but I would prefer to have something a little bit more of like a stretch goal for me to hit. And with the other side of that, with the way that, real estate kind of works is you put in a lot of effort on the front end and a lot of the results yield on the back end, right? So if I'm looking at my life over the next 5 years, my net worth is probably not going to be very great in the next 1, 2, or 3, but by year 4 and 5, the exponential value of real estate is going to kind of bring that. I might go from having a net worth of 500,000 to 2 million the next year because of the value of the real estate, right? So that's also the kind of game that I'm playing a little bit, but there wasn't a particular mindset around the 3 million. It was more of like, this is an easy way for me to be able to think about it regularly. And it wasn't like, I want to have $2.157 million by the time I'm 30. It's just 3 million by 30.
What would you do with 3 million?
That's not about what I would do necessarily, because I'm not a big spender type of guy. I really don't enjoy going out.
Or I guess what would be next? Maybe is a better question.
Yeah, I think the purpose of the goal for 3 million by 30 is to be able to say by 30 years old, if I want to go and pursue something else at that point, I have all the freedom in my life to do that. I don't really care about the money side of it.
So access to resources.
It's access, yeah. And it's the ability for me to say, tomorrow if I want to decide to go and travel to Costa Rica to farm bananas for the next 6 months, I can just do that, right? Like I would like to be able to, in my life, as I'm younger and as I'm maneuvering through the rest of my life, I would like to have the freedom to be able to just up and go if I want to. And
the optionality.
To be blunt, I don't know that I will want to at that point, right? I may be in a position in my life where I love the job that I'm doing day to day. I love managing the investments, or I love doing whatever I'm doing. And I might not even want that, but I do know that I want the freedom to want that,
Yeah, the availability, the optionality.
And
the ability to choose.
I think that's everybody's goal in
keeping options open.
I think when people say they want to be rich, I don't know that that's really what they want. I think they want what rich brings them, right? What wealth brings them.
Well, that's exactly why I asked.
Yeah.
Because, what's the point of, you have money to exchange it for other things, right? Because if you die with it in your account, then you don't even give it to everyone. It's like, what was the point
it's
of a sacrifice? Yeah. So I'm glad I think that was a pretty neat.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
It did answer it. It did answer the question. So I'm glad that we got there.
Cool.
Now, when it comes to the principles, the strategies, the tactics, the mindset that you've used so far, what kinds of thoughts, what kind of thoughts have carried you so far now?
Yeah.
Well, what's been your approach to life from the mental standpoint?
Yeah. I have a moral compass that I think is a huge value add to my business, I guess you could say. There is a level of morality that I think everybody has to have. But in terms of like the principles or things that I've been doing in my life, I read a book by Simon Sinek. It's called The Infinite Game. Probably one of the best books I've ever touched, and I would argue maybe one of the best books that has ever been written, but obviously there's going to be a lot of detractors of that, but and it's more or less the infinite game talks about looking at challenges or things in your life or your life as a whole as something that is more infinite than finite, right? And maneuvering in ways that when you make decisions day to day, your mindset is using that infinite game mindset as opposed to a finite set period of time where you're saying, I'm going to make this decision and it's going to yield this result. Life isn't like that. And I think when you try to approach business or success or whatever you want to call it in that sense, you run into these roadblocks because you're trying to get over the hurdle that you're currently experiencing, as instead of looking at it as this blip of time or blip of a hurdle that is really, in the grand scheme, relatively small to what you're dealing with. And so I think the infinite game changed my viewpoint a lot. It kind of put perspectives on what I'm doing now, and it also allowed me to look into the future a little bit more and say, I don't really care what my life looks like right now. I care what it will look like in 15 to 20 years from now, right? And that's not to say I'm living in slums, or it's not to say I'm not caring what my life looks like right now, right? Like, I do care about the people.
Like, I'm glad you showered today, you know?
Yeah, I shower every day. Like, there's those things I care about, but I don't make decisions that are going to impact me today. I make decisions that are going to impact me 15 or 20 years from now. And that's kind of how I live my life in a lot of instances. So that, what I would say, is a huge guiding principle. Another big thing for me is time on task. I think anything that we do in our lives, if we want to become better at it or be good at it or be proficient or anything, we have to spend time on task. And when I do things in my business, I think about what I'm doing. And for me, lead generation is a huge piece of my business. That's bringing clients to my sales business.
Yes.
Any sales business needs to lead generate. But for me, if I'm spending X amount of hours on this task, it's going to yield some sort of result. I know it will, just because of my activities, right? But if I'm spending minimal hours or no hours on that task, I can't really say one way or the other that that's what it's going to yield.
Yeah.
I have to spend time on task. So whether that be me brushing my teeth, right? That to me is a valuable thing every day, because I spend the time on the task, and in result, I don't get cavities, right? So I look at the same approach to my business. If I spend 5 hours lead generating that day as opposed to 3, I'll get more out of my lead gen and more out of my business than I would if I hadn't spent that time on task. So really, for me, time blocking has been a huge benefit because it's allowed me to say, all right, if something truly is valuable in my business and I need to get it done, I have to commit time to the task. Yeah, I have to have time on task. So that little principle a lot works for me. If I find myself doing something that's like, I'm just doing it to avoid the actual hard work that I need to do, I tell myself time on task, right? If I'm spending more time on this task, can I spend that same time on another task? No, I can't, because I'm stuck doing this. And is that task really yielding the result I want for year 15 as opposed to year number 1? Yeah. And that's a hard conversation to have with yourself, I think, at the end of the day, because you do have to commit to the suck a little bit, because not everything we do in our lives is glamorous.
Most things.
Investing
a lot of things.
A lot of things.
It doesn't have to suck.
Yeah.
A lot of things take effort.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't have to suck. Most things don't suck, but in my opinion, and I'm maybe a realist in this sense, but most things aren't super exciting either. Most of the time it's just, wow. So when you're doing the day-to-day, it has to be mostly blah, and some of the peaks will be like, yeah, this is great, this is awesome. But the hard part comes with the blah, right?
Yeah.
Doing I did this yesterday and I got to do it again today. I really don't want to do this,
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up, because even when you achieve a goal, people say, when I do this thing, when I have that, I will be happy, instead of finding ways to be happy throughout the journey.
Absolutely.
It's interesting to see that so often when you attain those things, it's not as grand as you hoped it would be. Or maybe it was very grand in the moment, but it's not as long lasting as maybe you would have hoped. Yeah,
and you're right. It's fleeting in that sense. Like when you buy a new car, right? The new car is great, but after you've driven it for 2 months, do you really care about the fact that you've had a new car? Right?
Yeah, you've already stopped washing it every week.
You stop cleaning the inside floorboards every time you get in there. You stop apologizing to people for having a dirty car, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's the same thing with our businesses, is like, once we get the goal, the result of that is fleeting. So we have to find ways to enjoy it on the way.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think I'm trying to do that as I continue on this journey. But
No, I think you are. And I think your attitude is a reflection of that. Well, actually, I think your attitude is a reflection of the choices that you've made. Is just to maintain a positive attitude. But I think when you're making decisions in the way that you are, you also position yourself to have more opportunities with asymmetry to the upside.
Yep.
Right, and less downside. So more often than not, you experience winning. You experience the game and less losses. Well, moving forward, those are some great tactics. I love that you shared those.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you have your eye on moving forward, or that you're wanting to grow into as a way to be successful 15 years from now? Is there anything new that you're considering, or are you doing? I guess sometimes removing things is better than adding things.
Sure.
So is there something you're doing moving forward that you think is going to apply to your success?
For my vision, like I am going to be in this real estate world for the rest of my life. Like that's kind of the way I look at it. Whether or not I'm actively involved in selling and running operations or doing whatever I'm doing within the realm, or if I'm more just focused on investing or whatever it is, I'm going to be in this real estate realm. So that's kind of the lane I want to play in. Long term, this is my kind of 10-year plan. I would love to develop a property management company. That's kind of my next step, I guess you could say. But I want to make sure I'm building that the way that aligns with myself and the way that I align my other businesses. And so for me, the property management will probably be a long-term approach, more so because I would like to purchase more properties first under my own, build a system around managing those for myself, and then take that system and apply it to other people's properties as a property manager. Yeah. But that's kind of the long-term goal I think I'm working towards, is having more involvement in the property management side as opposed to the real estate sales. But sales is a means to the end in that sense as well. So it all gels together. But that's where I would say, as I'm really just geared towards keeping the real estate consistent. And in reality, real estate returns are better on the year 15 than they are in year 1. So if I'm not going to do this long term, I probably should get out now.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But yeah, that's it. I would say I don't have any grand plans. I don't have anything that's on my way to success. The biggest thing for me is just stay consistent. Yep.
Stay consistent. Man.
Stay consistent. I'm on task.
I think that's a really great way to end this. Is following through with the things that we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
With our old plan, right?
Yep.
So often we think that the current plan that we're using isn't, we think that it isn't working.
Yeah.
And we want the new plan, we want the new thing, we want to learn more, we're going to take in all this stuff.
Yeah.
When in reality, when we look back, the plan that we had, the old plan, we didn't even give it
time to develop.
Yeah, I mean, talking system reliability, some stuff that I've learned from some good friends. Like, if the plan says do it 5 days a week and you're only doing it 3, that's 60% of the time you're doing the thing.
And 60% of the time you're going to get the result, but you're not going to get 100% of the result.
Well, it's like, if your car turned on 60% of the time, wouldn't you be pissed? Or your computer 60% of the time? Yet we tolerate that.
Yeah.
Humans,
or another example would be if you only put gas in your car 60% of the time, would you be upset that you were running out of gas? No.
If your battery was, how about if your battery was charged 60% of the time and you only put gas in 60% of the time, how often is the car going to start then?
It's only going to start 60% of the time.
0.6 times 0.6.
Yeah, you're right.
Goes down to, what is that, 0.36?
Yep.
0.36% of the time, in that scenario, the car is going to run.
It's actually working.
So when you add new components that aren't operating at high levels, the whole system's trash. But long story short, the human is usually the least reliable part of any system.
Yep.
So if you're following through half the time, then the reliability of your whole system is only going to perform at best 50%.
Yeah.
Probably less, because no component in any system is 100% reliable.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting conversation. I'm glad we ended on that, but props to you for being consistent, doing the work.
Thank you.
I think it's a great lesson for anyone out there who is stoked and psyched about getting all the new information, new shit.
Yeah.
Stay with the plan. Do the plan. Actually do the plan first.
There's a reason why Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think if you're trying to build Rome, which most people are, then you got to build it over time. And sometimes you got to commit to 5 years of time for that,
Yep.
And that's really what I look at. So
yeah, well, I respect you a lot for that.
Oh, man.
I think other people should too. So
thanks for having me.
Dude, thanks for hopping on. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely.
It's always good to see you. I'm glad we get to hang out. We've gotten quite a bit of time together over the years. And thanks to Jalubi back here behind the camera.
Thank you, sir.
One of these days you'll see his mug again. I know he likes to hide in the shadows with that beard.
We'll have to do one of these about his business.
I know. Yeah, I was actually talking about that. So
at a certain level.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to hound him on that one. He said he wants to get a haircut first. So
fair enough.
But I guess that's it. This wraps up the
I like that.
first episode of this new show. So we're gonna keep things flexible. We're gonna keep things fun. We basically got the name down, but I suppose we're not totally married to it in case another better one comes along. But this is it. This is the beginning. Thanks for tuning in, watching, hang out. Go follow Nick, ask him questions, check out his stuff. He's a pretty cool dude. I must admit, for being a guy from Vermont.
Yeah, and
for being a slightly salted potato chip.
There we go. And if you need anybody assistance with buying or selling real estate, please reach out. I'm happy to help.
Since this is going on YouTube, I'm telling you to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help. Thank you. Does that work? Yes.
Like, comment, subscribe.
All right, maybe we'll take his.
Boom.
I might just use his.
I know you will. I know you will. I know you will. We'll see you later.